Kosher Wine Podcast with Dr. Kenny Friedman and Rabbi Yisroel Bernath.
Hello, Kenny.
Rabbi Yisroel, great to see you. I feel like our last setting was a little bit a little bit better than this one.
Much better.
Yeah,
I miss being with you in person.
yeah, that was the best part about it, of course.
We should, you know what we should do? We should go Instagram Live because the last time we did that, we ended up with a great bottle of Four Gates.
You're right. I think that if we, who knows what'll happen if I put on Instagram Live. Unfortunately, as we've discussed, unless you're sitting next to me, I'm not technologically advanced to figure out how to run that. So we do it the old school way. But you're right. That was a special prize, and the gentleman who brought that, thank you very much. That was really great. That was it was a beautiful yontiv, and that was a special night. And it was so special to sit with you and drink wine. That's a special treat.
It was the highlight of my Pesach. Really, the opportunity that we were in the same.
You're lucky that you're lucky your wife was there, because otherwise she may have an issue with saying that was the highlight of your face.
She also said it was her highlight. So
Yeah, that was amazing. And also the wives got to sit together with us, and my brother was there, of course. It was beautiful. Other special guests.
we had a lot of special guests that night.
It was fun. We should do that format another time somehow. Let just like have an open door policy.
Yeah, we
You
could
know,
do an event.
what we've discussed is, one of these times we both have to get to one of these events early enough, but also close enough that there are other people around that can just pop in and say hi,
It was amazing.
right? We should do that like at a KFWE or something.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out. The truth is we should do one. We should do it after the event when everyone's all lubed up.
I think the listeners will enjoy that.
Right. That's actually really what we should do. We should make that a tradition. After KFWE, the last, I don't even know how many years, I'm always honored to sit with Elk. I think you came to the last one, right?
Yeah.
I don't even remember, and the point is that I don't remember, because if you remember, you weren't there, as they say. And it's always a lot of fun. The post KFWE with Elk and his exploits. Always a lot of great people around.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just record there next year, God willing.
I think I thought it was a great way to launch our second season, and this obviously the second episode of our second season.
2-2. Yep. And perfect for post Adar Sheni, post Pesach Sheni.
Yes.
Right? Second chances.
Never too late. It's never too late.
I've seen it before, I think, but I saw a letter from the Rebbe where, I don't remember. You probably know what I'm talking about. I don't remember who he wrote to. I could pull it up as we're speaking, but it was the point of his thing is that it's an apropos time, because it's a second opportunity, and it's a special thing, and it's a special way to think about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I guess this gives us a special opportunity to make up all our mistakes of season one.
I think a lot of people are looking for second opportunities, so it's permission to try again.
Yes, indeed. So what's been going on?
What's been going on? I love just knowing what you're drinking.
Okay.
I like the idea. Today, I think we should just pull whatever's open out. So it could be that we spoke about the wine before because it happens to be the one that's open. So just for our listeners to know, we planned this episode about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and
So which means
I don't know
put on the table.
these bottles, and you can tell me if you remember that I brought any of these. I doubt it, because I don't know how long as I've told you a lot of times, these bottles sit on my counter until they're cataloged somehow, either in a podcast or at a minimum. Not at a minimum. It happens to be as seemingly difficult as this podcast must seem to the listener. It's really pretty easy. We just get on a schmooze, right? But when I write, I really take that pretty seriously, and I research or whatever. So sometimes I'll just write about a wine and not even discuss it on here, or both. But I don't think I've done anything with these wines because they're still sitting in my recycling section in my kitchen, which means my wife will be so happy when she comes home today. And these bottles will all finally be in recycling bin.
How many bottles do you have there?
I pulled the six that I thought were interesting. I pulled six.
Okay, I
There are
pulled five.
probably others there, but they're not as interesting.
I pulled five,
Uh,
three for my recycling, and two that are still have some life in them.
yeah, I actually have. These are all empty except for one. I have a drop left. That'll be the first one I'll talk about because I've never had it before, and I doubt most people have even seen it. Um, and to be totally honest, I received it as a sample. Um, and I always tell before I show it, I always tell anyone who sends me wine that I'm not in the business of trashing wines. I don't do that. I'm not really that interested in it. I know some people probably want me to do that or you to do that, but we live in a small world and we know these winemakers. We know the people who, have money invested in them and money invested in importing them. I'm not looking to hurt anyone, like that. But I'm not going to lie about a wine unless I like it. I say if I don't like it, I just won't really discuss it. But this wine I was surprised about. And I was also surprised because I saw the price point and it's not expensive. That which of course we both know it's not an end all be all at all.
Absolutely.
So have you seen this bottle?
Vizar Roble.
Right.
No, I have
So
never seen this bottle.
the Spanish bottle from Bodega Vizar. I'm gonna, of course, as always, butcher the language. It's from Northwest Spain. I didn't get to write it up yet, so I can't say that I've really researched a lot about it. But it's from Northwest Spain, from Castilla and Leon, that area, Northwest Spain. I know a couple things about it. That it's instead of it being, this is an interesting thing. Instead of it being like an appellation, like a lot of wines are, and of course they have that in Spain too. This is from something called a pago, which is something introduced by, you probably know this, you were in Spain. This is something introduced by Spain to actually increase the quality of their wines. And pago is actually the winemakers are left with certain restrictions that are really their own almost. But one of them is that they only use fruit from their own estates or from that specific appellation, I should say. But this is it's kind of an interesting mix because, of course, the number one grape is Spanish, is Tempranillo.
Tempranillo, of course.
And I didn't bring my glasses in here, but I can still see it because I'm not that old. It's majority Tempranillo. It's about 2/3 Tempranillo, and then it's about a fifth Syrah, and then small portions of Merlot. You don't hear about Spanish Merlot so much.
No.
And Merlot and Cab make up about 13%. And then aged 6 months in French oak and 3 months in the bottle. And I gotta say, I thought it was really good. I don't want to misquote it, but I think I saw that it retailed, I'll look it up as I'm talking about it, but I think I saw that it retailed right at about $20. Let me see. I have it. Yep, $20.
What were the tasting notes on it? Anything interesting that jumped at you?
I didn't think it was particularly interesting from a tasting perspective. I just thought it was particularly well made and balanced. I thought great fruit, great acid, not overripe in any way. I'm always a little nervous when I start, when you find $20 bottles from warm countries that are also aged in oak, I start getting nervous. It's going to be out of my category of what I like. This was not at all. This was very balanced, very nice wine. And personally, I thought this has a lot, and that's why I left. You can see, but no one listening on Spotify can see, but there's about a fifth of a bottle left because I actually let it go too long because it's already been, trying to even remember when I opened it. But because I wanted to taste it after it sat for a little bit and see if it held up, because that is an indication that it can age. And I think this bottle, it felt to me that this bottle, it's not meaning will it improve? Not necessarily, but I feel like this bottle can certainly sell or and maybe improve. I thought this is a bottle you could drink now for the next 7-8 years. Not an immediate like you drink it now or else it's going to fall apart in a year. 7, 8 years maybe pushing it a little, but it's a very nice wine for a $20 wine.
You think
So
it's a table wine or it's a little better?
no, I thought it was better. I would have if I was poured a glass of that, I would have expected it to be double the price. I was really pleased with it. I think that's a real
That's
find
great
at
to
twenty
know.
dollars.
We're always looking for the QPR, as they say, for the best bang for the buck. So
Right. So this, and I think that's such an overused term, but I think this is truly QPR because I felt like it's a bottle that I would have paid 35 or $40 for, and it's $20. It is
hope you're not
non-negotiable.
listening.
Non-negotiable.
It's not Mavushal. Oh wow.
Yeah. Which for the most part, I'm just double checking it. It's non-negotiable. For the most part, oh, I don't see anything, so it's non-negotiable. For the most part, especially in wineries that are not really accustomed to doing mavushal, that's a good thing. I mean, because like the likelihood is that they're going to mess something up with the pasteurization or that process of making it mavushal. So to me, that's leave it alone is better. So I that was that's my most interesting. Well, I wouldn't say it's my most interesting wine. I have a bunch of interesting bottles here. It's imported by BAM. I'll tell you, I was like looking at these bottles, and the ones I have in front of me, I don't think any of them are Royal wines. And of course, we love Royal wines, and Royal wines has been what a boon to the kosher wine industry, an amazing thing that the Herzogs have done for the kosher wine world.
They have
But it's
made
nice to,
our lives better,
sure.
more enriched.
But it's nice to see that there's other, small importers and producers, and we definitely need to support them too. And I think that I don't even have a Royal wine in front of me. So
Wow.
nothing personal against the good people at Royal, who we all love them dearly. So what about you?
So I'm gonna try to match you. I'm enjoying this because I just pulled this one out. I'm showing it because it's similar to the one that you've had, probably one that you've never seen before. This is have you ever seen this?
I've seen it. I have not had it. It's a little blurry on my side,
Okay, so
but
it's the El Orador. It's a Rioja, so Spanish wine. It's a white. It's a white Rioja. Tempranillo. Have you ever had a Tempranillo white?
um, I don't know. Maybe not.
This is the first time I've ever had a
White?
Tempranillo
No.
white.
Interesting. Yeah. Tell me about it.
It's really nice. It's very smooth. It's almost, it reminds me a little bit of a more uh like a balanced Sancerre. Like it's a little lighter than a Sancerre. It's not really a Sauvignon. It's hard to really describe it, but it was not something I ever had before. Like it's
So
a
more
flavor
like
I've never had
fruit,
before.
more like a fruity, a little more fruit, you're saying, than acidity. Did I catch that right?
I would say more minerally than
Or
acidity.
minerally. I think that Tempranillo, what do they call it? Tempranillo Blanco, maybe or something.
Hmm?
I think that's I feel like we talked about this, or maybe it's something I wrote about, but I think that's a mutation of Tempranillo, and it's like I just wrote something about that. A different grape though, and that's such an interesting thing to try. Is that the only kosher one? Do you
I've
know?
never seen another one. That's why I picked it up because I've never seen one before.
How much is that bottle? Do you happen to know?
It wasn't expensive. I don't know. Probably like
Trying to
20,
find it.
somewhere between 20 and 25.
Okay. And who imports that?
Uh,
And is it Mavushal?
it is not Mavushal,
Okay.
and I don't know who imports it.
By the way, just to go back to that last wine, because I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm going to ask you the alcohol by volume on it, the ABV on that last wine, and it's also why it's so not overbearing. Is it's only 13.5%. It's not like a 14.5.
Yeah, so
Well, what about that?
this is 12.5,
12.5. Okay.
but it's a white.
Yeah, well, that's where we
You'd
would expect.
expect that from a white. So what's interesting is I did do a little research because it's a Rioja Alta, and apparently there's a sub-region in Rioja that is a little cooler and a little higher elevation. And I mean I have not seen a kosher Rioja Alta also. So that was a new. I mean, similar to I think the Vizar. It's hard to find some of these appellations. There's like 26 appellations in Spain, and probably only three or four of them that are producing kosher wine.
Yeah, we still, as much as we talk about always like how, how much the kosher world has expanded and blown up, really. There's still so many regions that are we've never had any examples from, which is part of the reason um, W said diploma doesn't exist for us really outside of either people that have some kind of heter or something to taste non-kosher wine. Topic for a different time, which I don't do or
Which is
do.
not you and I. That's
Yeah,
what I
we
love
don't do
about the
that.
two of
I'm not
us.
saying yes or no. I'm not a rabbi.
Yeah.
But anyway, outside of doing that, because part of the reason is that there's whole, categories that have no examples of kosher wine. So we still have a long way to go, but that's cool. That's always cool. And you and I both did the same that, and like you see something we never tried. I'm always buying something I haven't tried. Always.
Yeah.
And it bothers me sometimes when people are like, why would you buy that when you could buy this wine, some very well-known wine that's the same price? I'm like, because I want to try something new. I want to try something new.
Do you find in general in your life that you're the kind of person who likes something new or you like things that are the same?
I will always try something new. If I go to a restaurant and I know, even if I've tried most of the things, if I see a different thing and I know one of them is my favorite and I'm probably going to regret buying the new thing, I will always try the new thing.
So I do like predictability, but I find in wine and in food, I like to explore. That's the one part of my life that I like to explore. So if you're, why I'm saying this is if, like me, if you're the kind of person who you do like things the same, I think wine and food give you the ability to explore while remaining the same.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that's me. I'm not saying I'm not a risk taker per se, but when it comes to food and wine, particularly, I do. And you're right. That's an interesting way to look at it. Is that it's one avenue where you can kind of be adventurous. And for us, I certainly know I grew up, in an era where the offerings outside of my own home, which is my mother is the best cook, but outside my home, like the offerings were so slim. So I grew up in Baltimore. There was one restaurant,
Yeah.
and there was even from like I don't eat a lot of this kind of stuff anymore, but even from like, remember when the first time you saw kosher Doritos or something, or kosher Oreos or these kind of things, I still think they're cool because it shows, you know, um, I guess the role we play in that world and that there is an advantage to these companies for whatever. Right? Again, not to get into that topic. So I still think it's always cool when I
I
see,
agree with
an
you.
iconic product become kosher.
Similar to you, I grew up in Chicago. We had Jerusalem pizza and Mitsuyan Chinese. That was it. Oh, and
Chicago's
Steve
pretty
pizza.
like nowadays. Chicago has a pretty good food scene. I mean, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I
Chicago.
I don't know if
King.
we ever discussed it, but I lived there. A lot of people don't know that chapter of my life, but I lived there for almost a year. For like 10 months, I lived in Chicago, way out in the middle of nowhere, like near towards I can't even remember what that city's called, but I lived in a city called Downers Grove slash Lombard in that area, like way in the middle of nowhere.
Oh,
I
wow.
st- I
I know
started
where that is.
chiropractic school out there, and my brother was in medical school out there, and we were both living out there at that time. But I loved Chicago itself, and I remember how excited I was to go to Ken's Diner that first time. I was like so
Similar.
excited to go there. Because even to this day, places like that don't really exist under a lot of like, for instance, a Star K is not opening a place that's going to be playing like jukebox music, that's not Avram Fried or something, and have like stuff like that. It felt very dinery, and like I always like to me that's it's part of the I as it pertains to restaurants, I'm as much an ambiance person as I am a food person.
Absolutely.
Because what's the point of it otherwise? I can make a steak myself. That's probably gonna be better than most steaks I buy. But if I'm sitting in a really beautiful place and the service is great and all that, that's the biggest part of it to me. Like getting just an interesting food. I mean, I do interesting food myself, and like it's not the plus to me. So to go to a cool place where it's like, the ambiance is like that's so important to me. And Ken's Diner is an
Yeah.
iconic place. I wouldn't say it's necessarily clean or whatever, but it's such an iconic place and it's so cool. Like that was a thrill for me to go there.
So, question for you, because I've had this debate with a lot of people. Food or service? What's more important?
I mean, I'm going to give a dorky answer that I think they're equally important, but I think most people would probably think say food is the most important thing. That's why you're going out. I don't think that way. I think
Go for
service is
service.
so yeah.
Service. I'm fine with mediocre food and good service.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I would be fine with mediocre food. I'd still fetch a lot about that.
Because you're Jewish.
Yeah, but also because I do food. I mean, I'm an amateur, but I do events and I do food and I take a lot of pride in what I do. And I feel like you go to so many restaurants and it's just so disappointing the food. Like put a little bit of thought into it, try a little harder. And I'm not throwing. The biggest Baltimore booster there is in the world. Baltimore through and through. But and I'm not throwing our restaurants under the bus. And there's lots of good places here or whatever. But it's also mediocre. It's like there's such a level of like you don't have to be better because the bar is where it is and people are fine with it. And that's I
And
feel
he
like
come to Montreal.
it's like Montreal, right? It's like a lot of
No,
cities.
Montreal. Come to Montreal. The French service, there's nothing like it.
Oh yeah, okay, fine.
French influence here,
Yeah.
it's a different feel.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, I think. And I think if you're gonna run a steakhouse, then run it the right way. Have real wine service, have waiters that are trained. And that's to me, that's part of going out and part of like I don't mind spending the money, but I want it to be special. I want it to feel different than it's going to if I go to Ken's Diner.
Yeah.
If you're going to a steakhouse where you're walking out with a bill of, hundreds, you should have the experience of that a non-kosher place would. Because the thing is, in the non-kosher world, let's say Baltimore has a very good non-kosher food scene, I hear, and I see it actually. And I talk to people all day in my office, everywhere else, and I talk about food and wine. It's a natural topic. And I talk to people that don't keep kosher about the same things. And, a place that's going to be substandard on all those levels in the non-kosher world is going to close. And that just kind of doesn't happen in the kosher world in a lot of small cities. Just be happy you have a pizza shop. Just be happy you have, a falafel shop. And there's truth to that. I'm not totally disregarding that. I think that I was talking to someone in my office this morning, and I was telling him about the Grove in Surfside, Bal Harbor, in that area, and I'm like, you can't believe what I spent there the last time when I was there. But I said, but the other side of it is like, how amazing is it that you can get fresh sushi on the beach in Miami? Like that's amazing. It's amazing. Don't like I don't underestimate that.
Exactly.
You're gonna pay for that too.
Don't hate on on the place. You can go on vacation as a frum Jew and you can actually have
Yeah,
access. And
correct. So,
so many other places that now we have access like we never had before. Again,
it's
we
so
grew up in an era where there was nothing.
well, thanks most in part to the Chabad world, which, by the way, my grandfather's yahrzeit, my Zaidi, I'm going to mention him quickly. It's his yahrzeit today. Moshe Nechamkin, my mother's father, came to America right at the beginning of the 20th century from Nezhin, which was a Lubavitch town in Ukraine,
For those of you who
where
don't know,
they
Kenny is Gej. If you're Chabad, you know what I mean.
absolutely, and I think his biggest chus that exists now is that he sacrificed because he was the only one of 9 siblings that stayed religious when he came here. He never worked on Shabbos. He ran his own businesses and he became successful. In fact, the coolest thing about him, you have to know Baltimore to know this, is that there's 2 cool parts of it. One is that the store was in Fells Point, which nowadays Canton Fells Point, which is the cool like bar area downtown, still to this day. I mean, it wasn't then, it is now, but still to this day, a nice area, which is not so easy to find in Baltimore. But number 2, it was a motorcycle shop. He owned a motorcycle shop in Fells Point, which is like the
Wow.
coolest. And I found because aside from wine, one of my favorite things, probably my favorite thing more than wine, is Baltimore Jewish history, all Jewish history, but very much Baltimore Jewish history and very much Baltimore shuls. And I found one of my greatest finds, and I never saw a picture of him that young. My mother didn't have them. He was 53 when my mother was born. And there are like no pictures of him as a young man. Before he got married in 1919, there was an ad in the Baltimore Sun. I found this at like 1 a.m. He had an ad for his motorcycle shop. It says, M. Nechamkin says, will be a great year for the Excalibur motorcycle. And there's a picture of him. And it was like I got chills when I found it because I never saw him as a young man. He was what was he? He was maybe 30 then. He was born. This is my Zadie, by the way. Two generations. He was born in 1882 or 81.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. And he was a late, he got
Motorcycles. This
married
guy's
late.
legend.
He's an unbelievable. I could talk about him for an hour, but I could do a different podcast if anyone's interested on my musings of Jewish history. Anyway, I just wanted to mention him, Moshe Nachamkin, he longtime president of his and Gabbai of his shul, his Neshama Shlev and Aliyah,
Anshe Nezhin. No?
Anshe Neshin, first Lubavitch shul in Baltimore.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So
Um,
should have an Aliyah. Very special to be able to be recording today, and we should make a l'chaim for him.
Yep. Unfortunately, I got to work still today, so I can't, but I will be later.
What else
So
do you have there? I'm curious.
but that was just to end up that whole Chabad. It's an amazing thing that they're all in all these cities and wherever. What should we do next? I'm not going to get through all these. All right, let's do this. This was delicious. I got this through Andrew Breskin's club, Liquid Kosher. This is the 2020 Chateau Le Grave de Lavaud. It's part of the estate of Christophe Bardot,
Yes.
from the famous Domaine Roses Camille, which I think, and I asked Gabe Geller this, and I saw he responded, he's not 100% sure, but I think maybe if it's not the only, this is like a hard thing to believe, but I feel like I heard it somewhere, and I asked him, and I know there are people that know this, but I just like right before we began the podcast, I texted him and I said, is Domaine Roses Camille the only all kosher winery in France? And it may be. And he wrote, actually, I'm not 100% sure. There may be others, but it's one of the only ones. And that's like hard to believe, you know?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, if I bet you if we took a poll of 50 or 100 people that drink wine, how many all kosher wineries in France are there? I bet you people would say, I don't know, 50,
Well, people say
10.
the same thing about Italy. There's only two in Italy.
Right. People forget. And in
There's
Spain,
one in Spain.
right. It's like people don't realize that most wines coming out of Europe are from wineries that are not otherwise kosher, the vast majority. So it's like really cool that this is a kosher winery. Um, Christophe Bardot, of course, is not Jewish, and he's from a long, generations of winemaking. And I know their estate I think they bought this estate 70 years ago, but it's from it's from Lalande de Pomerol, which is of course famous for Merlot. And I read somewhere that this plot of land, which is very small, I feel like it's like 1 hectare or something like that. That may be wrong. Yep, just 1 hectare. I'm looking at it. Is less than a kilometer from the famed Chateau Petrus, which is one of the most famous, not kosher, which is one of the most famous wines in the world. So, and land and soil in Bordeaux are everything, and the most important part of it. Obviously, the winemaker is very important too. But this is pretty impressive. We're lucky to have this kosher, and this wine is so Bordeaux. I mean, it's so unmistakably Bordeaux. It happens to be, I think that I could guess it's his wine too, because to me, his wine all has a touch of Brut in it. And for some people like my wife, like it's funny because I had a big wine drinker here this Shabbos when we opened it. That's why I opened this for him, and he loved it. And I said, do you notice anything about it? And he was like saying all the standard wine stuff, which he was right about. But then I said, watch this. And I poured a glass for my wife, and she smelled it, and she's like, nah, barnyard. Or whatever she said, something like that. It's what she classifies all that stuff. Some of the times it is like more like barnyard stuff, but sometimes what she's smelling is Brut. And this one is a touch of Brut in it, and it's like all his wines do. Some people really don't like that. I love it, honestly. And this is such a beautiful wine, and it's not particularly expensive. Have you had this one?
I haven't had it, and I'm salivating because our good friend Zev Steinberg is doing a trip right there. They're all going there in a few weeks, and I so wish I could go. I don't know how people can just.
I'm surprised you're not actually. You go everywhere.
I know. It just happens to be I have a responsibility one of those nights and I can't get away. I wish I could go and my dream, I've never been. My dream to go to that region. I mean, some of the best wine I've had in my life is from there.
There's a place I think in Maryland called Bordeaux, and recently it led to some confusion with my friend and I. I'm trying to think he said it was in Maryland, but anyway, like someone was going there, and I'm like pretty sure it's not in France where he's going. Anyway, it was like someplace Bordeaux, Maryland. So that's probably a better bet that I'll end up there this year than in the France one, but I haven't been there either. And I, of course, would love to go with Zev, and I know Sam Sofer is always involved in those, and I know they've gone to Rose's Camille before, and
And they're going again. That's why I'm
yeah,
like, oh.
so yeah, that's pretty cool. And then yes, I can you tell I'm jealous? Is my eye twitching? I think Zev may need a couple people like to really fill out a strip, or I don't know if it needs, but I think he had his space for a couple people. So if you are interested, then reach out to him.
And you or reach out to us and we'll send you his contact.
Sure. And I gotta say, I'm impressed that Zeb's doing this because it's something I always thought about doing, and more power to anyone who follows what they love doing. I think it's really cool that he's leading these things, and more power to him. Go get him.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And yes, I am so jealous and so want to go. And I just and probably would have gone if it wasn't for an obligation that I have. I'm doing um, an Israeli wine tasting for Israel Bonds in Toronto.
So not a real obligation, a fun obligation.
I promised them a few months ago, and I'm
I'm
a
surprised
man
to
of my
hear.
word.
I'm surprised to hear you have any obligations. Sometimes,
You just think I just sit around all day waiting for you to do this, right?
yes, I do. I do. I'm the center of your world. Don't I know that.
Totally. Totally.
What's your next wine?
So you're gonna see a theme here. These are all the wines that I have open, and I'm in a white phase.
Good,
You go through
amazing.
phases?
I mean, I'm always a bubble guy, and I do have a bubble here. I actually, because of who I had over the past weekend, I drank some more reds. But yeah, I go through phases for sure. But mine's more like probably stylistic than necessarily just red or white. But yeah, what
So I'm totally in a white phase, and this is probably the
good?
best bottle of white that I have had all year. Like it is
Oh yeah,
unbelievable. The
now I see
Gita
it.
Villebois Puy Fumé Les Silex Blanc.
I gotta say something. First of all, I'm embarrassed. You live in Montreal. Your French has got to be better than that.
I know it's not. I
I
know.
agree with you.
I knew I was gonna I knew I was gonna botch it up, and I'm like, everyone's gonna say he lives in basically France. Like, how does he not know that the French and Gabe is gonna be listening to this and laughing hysterically.
Right,
But
right, right.
I'm sorry, I'm an American and born and raised in Chicago. Even though I've been in Montreal for over 20 years, I still can't get the French accent.
We should have someone do like in editing and post editing, like do a voiceover where you see your lips moving differently and then someone pronouncing it properly.
Exactly. So
So
this
that's
was
awesome.
it's a great bottle of wine. It's a Sauvignon Blanc. It's got like it's a little smoky, citrus. It's got all of those mineral feels. I just yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's.
acidity is like vibrant. It was I could have finished the whole bottle easily.
I
Well,
think
some left.
yeah, Fumé is. I mean, we're lucky to get examples of wines from that region. I would say between that and also we have Sancerre and like you getting some of the best Sauvignon Blanc in the world with very unique, styles. Did you say that was a Silex or no? You didn't.
It is.
Oh, it is Silex. So
Is it a Silex or a Silex?
it's for sure not Silex.
Okay,
I,
good. You.
it, I've said this before. I did take 4 different semesters of French in college, and I actually at that point in time, but that was a long time ago, I actually knew a fair amount of French. I could like read French paragraphs. It's all gone. And I want to say that's Silex probably, and I'm sure you pronounce the X. I don't even remember, but I'm sure
I
it's
think you
Silex.
do. I think you do. Yeah.
Sure. And I like your mention because you're like, is it? And instead of saying that you're wrong, that is not how you say it.
No, I'm
So,
not sure myself.
well, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, so there is a Puy Fumé that's not the Silex.
Right. The
And that's
Silex,
good. That's good. That's good wine. But this
it's
is
great. I happen to love all of those wines, and the Silex, I think, is which is much more expensive, is really special. And you get that's a very unique place in terms of like minerality that you'll find in the wine. You know, everyone, I think everyone loves Sauvignon Blanc. It's why it's become so popular in the world. Everyone loves it because of its
fresh.
fruit and
It's
acid and
vibrant.
right,
It's fruits.
right, crisp. It's so good. Everyone loves it. Like to people that don't love white wine, I'll always pour them Sauvignon Blanc instead of Chardonnay because there's so like you said that vibrance and freshness and like. But of course, I think that in the kosher world, at least, what I see is that the most popular ones are the New Zealand ones of Dwyer's
Right.
and Rimoper and Goose Bay, of course. And you can see why because they're like those are fun and playful. This, what you're drinking, is so much more serious wine.
It is. It's a serious white. I think it's a red lover's white.
It's an interesting way to say it. There's a lot of depth to it. And I think that minerality is like if you want to find flint and minerality in wine and want to understand what that means, because that's not necessarily, it's a weird thing to say something tastes like stone. Like, when did you taste stone? But I always think of stone as like the smell of stone when it first rains. It's a
Ah,
kind of
I
like
like
that's,
that. Yes.
yeah. I mean, most of taste is smell anyway. So if you smell, you smell, that's a great way to learn more about wine. Smell everything, smell everything. Um, Smell dirt, smell it, smell what that smells like, and smell different dirt. Smell leafy dirt versus smelling, dirt outside your house. So smell it in a forest floor. It's like then you start to understand all these terms and how to look for them in wine.
Yeah, it is just a fan.
Yeah,
You
that is
get
great wine.
into it
That's
and you
not
get
cheap
into some
wine,
of
right?
these, huh?
That's not inexpensive wine, is it? What does that wine cost?
I
I
think
want to say 45, 50.
it was around $50.
Who's the producer? Is that Villebois, that one?
Villebois. It's Villebois, and it is who? It's a royal. It's a royal.
Yeah, that one is. I know it is. I'm gonna look at it real fast. $50, 45, $50.
It's if you're looking for a wine and that's a price point that you can handle, it's a fantastic wine.
Yeah, I think I like the way you said that. It's like a red wine drinker's white wine. That's an interesting way to say it. I think there's so much depth in it. I think we probably only have time for one more. Why don't you do it? I'm not
No, you
convinced.
do it. You do it.
Well, I don't know which one. I have
I love
um
to hear what you're drinking, so that's why I come here.
I mean, I could just point out the other ones, but oh, well, this is speaking of Sauvignon Blanc, and speaking of Sauvignon Blanc, and I just had this, and this is the Dalton Fumé, this the Sauvignon Blanc
Is that the
Fumé is
23 or 20? Is there 24 out yet?
24. This is the new one.
24.
24.
And
I thought it was great. I think for a long time they've made good Sauvignon Blanc, and specifically the Fumé. Um,
it's funny, they stopped calling it the Fumé. They just kind of mention it, but they used to call it the Fumé Blanc.
right. So Fumé is, I think we discussed one of these recent times. Fumé just indicates that it was aged in oak. Fumé is French for like
Smoke.
oak.
Smoky. Yeah.
You know something. And it's not, I don't take any smoke in it, but of course it's just more that name became characterized with the oak aging in the Sauvignon Blanc, which was a whole movement made 30, 40 years ago by the famous, I'm blanking on his name in California to produce this style. And everyone kind of took it on. And this is aged for 5 months in oak barrels. Dalton is, of course, a state winery in the north of Israel, way up north. I was lucky to visit, and this is not an expensive wine. And here's an interesting thing about it, because when we were drinking at the table, we had this whole discussion about it, and I asked people their thoughts on what kind of factor, like what kind of impression, not factor, it makes on them. You'll notice, and again, if you're on Spotify, correct. If you're on Spotify, you don't see it, but it's a twist off bottle.
Yeah.
And what impression that makes. So yeah, I got the obvious answers. Which what do you think? What do you think the most obvious answer is going to be? Cheap. So I think the wine industry is trying to change that. You see more and more, for sure, in the white wine department. You see more and more white wines bottled with screw tops. I mean, you have places like New Zealand where it's like 100% of the wines are, and Australia, a lot of wines, but you see more and more of that because there's almost no reason to not use a screw top. There's some, I wouldn't say it's controversy, but there's some back and forth about aging wines and screw tops. But one thing you're not at risk of is cork taint. So there are a lot of different numbers you'll see on like how many bottles that affects. I personally, I really rarely get corked bottles. Maybe I'm lucky. I run into people who I feel like 1 out of 4 bottles, they're like, it's corked. I'm like, really? But because I really don't have it that often, but it is a problem and it does happen sometimes. And like, it's not going to happen with a screw top.
It's so interesting because Vera Ben Sadon was in Montreal on Sunday night, and she was talking about how Tura, they only use real cork. And even though, and she mentioned it, you will get corked bottles, we feel like that is the correct way to do it and the only way that they only use actual cork. It's produced in Portugal. She was talking about it. And I was thinking to myself, just, yeah, I mean, do you think Villebois would ever do a twist off?
Yeah, I mean, because there's that idea that people open it, they're like, oh, this is obviously a cheap bottle. It's like it's hard to even for me to get over that feeling like of
I
that
think for
cheapness.
for a white, it's fair. For a rosé, it's fair. I don't see reds. I don't see that happening to an aged red anytime soon.
It's going to, in my opinion. I mean, for a variety of reasons. First of all, just the price of cork is extremely expensive. Um, cork is always going to exist. And we did a whole episode on this, which
Yeah.
I think, by the way, probably my favorite episode. 'Cause
We gotta do more
I love
geeky
it.
episodes.
I love the wine geek episodes and
Yeah.
I love the nerdy stuff. But, synthetics will probably at some point overtake it to some degree, or these like other cork products, like, these high-end companies like Diam, whatever it's called, Diam. And but I think these are going to increase these bottles because it's silly not to. It's just a matter of changing consumer impression of them. But I was happy personally to see that. There's such advantage in some ways. Like first of all, especially for a wine like this, I'm gonna like the fact that you can put it in your fridge and just rescrew it and drink it 2 days later. That's great. I mean,
And bring it
first
on
of
the road. Do you have to worry about finding a corkscrew?
all, exactly. That was my next point. You don't need a corkscrew. It's great. Maybe they could put like another foil wrapping around the top and no one would even know.
No one would know until you open it.
Except for that, I've actually seen people try to use a corkscrew and like until they realize like, yeah, that's a screw top.
Well, what else
Uh,
do you have there? I have to know what else is there before.
well, okay, yeah, my last spot. Well, maybe I should save them, but okay, I had this. I did my own little like write up on this, but this is the Clos 15. You
Oh,
went here. You went here, right?
I
Didn't
wasn't
visit
there,
one.
but I've had it.
Okay, this is the Clos 15 Cava. It's a brute nature.
So it's like a traditional method.
Which is traditional method, méthode traditionnelle.
Yes.
And it's a brute nature, which means they don't put the dosage on it, which means they're not adding sugar, which means two things really to keep it short. Number one, that it's going to be super dry. And number two, that it's not going to be able to age really. That dosage,
Yeah.
that added sugar syrup thing, really gives champagnes and champagne style or champagne method wines the ability to age for a long time. Cava is made from different grapes. I'm not going to get into this whole thing, but Cava is made from different grapes than traditional champagne. It has its own requirements. It's all made exactly the same way as champagne. It has to me, a very different taste than champagnes and champagne-specific grapes, like because champagne, as we know, is Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. This is Charolot, Parellada, and Macabeo. Is that what they're on? I don't remember. But
Cabello.
but there's always, and I've spoken to Geller about this a long time, and I pick up the exact same thing. I never love Cava as much as most other traditional method bubblies. There's a certain bitter note, and it's funny because I love bitter notes. I love bitter flavors, and some of my most favorite things are bitter, coffee and beers and arugula and things like that. But there's some note in Cava that I love it. This was delicious, by the way. I think a great buy. It's also like $18 or something like that. Where else are you buying traditional method?
Amazing.
Probably
Somebody else actually asked me recently if there was wines with no calories, and I believe a traditional method cava has no calories.
no calories is impossible.
I mean,
No
maybe very
calories.
few calories.
It's probably the lowest,
Yeah.
but I don't see why it would even be different than a very dry white wine. I mean, it just doesn't have. It's for sure the lowest calorie bubbly because they don't add in any, right? But I can't imagine no calories. It's impossible. I'd be drinking it all day, every day. That were true.
No, because people don't realize how caloric wine is.
Oh, my mom, God bless her. She said, she said one time to me, I was like complaining. It's like, I need to lose 10 pounds. She's like, maybe don't drink so much wine or something like she said to me. She said it in the nicest possible way. She's like, maybe you shouldn't drink so much wine. It's full of calories. I'm like, you forget about that. You're sitting there pounding wines on Shabbos and like, it's like drinking grape juice. It's so different. It's like full of calories.
No calories on Shabbos, only after Shabbos.
Yeah, right. If only.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Everyone who says that is overweight.
just looked it up. There's less than 100 calories, which is not a lot for wine.
Yeah, sure. Right. There you go. I also I had this Dalton Alma, which they now call deep red instead of crimson. I don't know why they made that change. I actually am curious to
I
know.
like the old black label better.
Yeah, do you? I actually like this label better. I was actually going to say that. I like the change they made. That black label looked maybe a little fancier.
Yeah,
The crimson, as they called it.
it's
You know what
a
I did notice?
it's a
I think
bold
it came
wine.
down a couple dollars in price from the
Yeah,
crimson.
yeah.
But this, by the way, in the winery itself, they have this in the tasting room. This French horn with the flowers coming out. They have a big thing of that in the. I just thought that was cool to see. I'm like, I recognize that. I know where that's from.
I think
Um,
that a lot of people are really into these really bold, large fruit cabs, Bordeaux style blends, and
yes,
they're paying a lot of money for those blends. And this one is like very close to those.
yeah. So that's a great point. This is not particularly my style of wine. This is that style. This is very Israeli in the way when I say that in a not good way, in that it's very ripe. Not very ripe, but it's ripe. Everyone I was with liked it. Someone who likes that style will love this, and it's not expensive. It's certainly a lot cheaper than buying, Bordeaux or whatever. And you know what? At the end of the day, a lot of, compare this to the Chateau Le Gras, right? I will tell you, out of 10 people I'm going to have over here on Shabbos that drink wine, 9 of them will prefer this Dalton over this.
Well, because it's
Bordeaux.
easier to drink, it's
Easier to drink. It's
bolder, it's
Yeah,
fruitier,
a little
it's
sweeter.
yeah.
So I understand, why people would love this, and it's a well-made wine, not my particular style. It's a blend of Cab Franc, Merlot, Shiraz, Grenache, 2% Grenache, and aged 18 months in oak. So yeah, it's very like that style. But it's like $24, very affordable. So I would certainly not pan that. This is exactly the type of wine that I know of all the snobs we talk to are going to be like, "Arr, blah, blah, blah." But I'm like, this is popular wine. People like this wine. I don't poo-poo what people like.
Yeah, and not everyone has a palate that is as developed as yours. And
I also know, and not everyone has that Chateau Le Gras. It's probably $65. Not everyone has $65 to spend on a bottle of wine. I don't. So is that? I think I covered everything. Oh, I didn't. This one. I'm going to save this for a different one. I'm gonna save it. I
Yeah.
have one other. But what about you? Finish up your
I'll
wines.
just do my I'll just do
Right.
quickly. I just literally pulled these off. I have the Dalton Pinot Gris. I think I mentioned this before. This is one of the vineyards they lost.
Yep.
So this is the final vintage of this one, and
Right.
2023, and I love it. I like a Pinot Grigio in general. I like an Israeli Pinot Gris. Again, I really think they did a great job. They turned another thing about Dalton. I don't know why they did this. They turned the Dalton Reserve into the family collection. I like the reserve. I keep it reserved. It's a good word. I
Yeah.
know that Israelis overuse it. I think it should be it should be called the Dalton Reserve Pinot.
Yeah, I could probably be swayed both ways on that. I think sometimes those things get confusing, but reserve is for sure overused. It means nothing, really, reserve. Really means nothing. But I hear what you're saying. Those things get confusing.
Anyway, it was really citrusy. Also had a little bit of depth. I would say, obviously not like the Syrah, but it's a red lover's white. And again, I'm in this white thing. And my final red lover's white. I only have a little bit left if you want to try some. Oh, I actually have like half a
I
bottle.
know what that is. That's I'm gonna guess.
OMG, was this a great bottle of wine?
Oh,
Do
I
you
thought you
like
were telling
this?
me. Is that the Picpoul Blanc?
This is the Pinot Blanc.
Pinot Blanc.
This is the Pinot Blanc 2024 from Mendocino County from our good
Mendocino
friend
County.
Jonathan Hajdu.
Very good wine.
Wow.
Very good wine. I just actually ordered a bunch of wine from John. Um,
Wow.
can I tell you something that I don't love about that bottle and has nothing to do with the wine? And if you could pick it up and show it to the camera,
Sure. Which way? This
I
way?
don't like the way a black and white label looks on on a bottle of white wine.
That
And
is
I
so
refuse to
interesting.
tell it.
Somebody at my table this Shabbos when I put it out said exactly the same thing.
So funny. I always have thought that, and I mean to always tell him in a nice way that I don't like. And I love that label, and I love all his labels. They're amazing. But that label would be best served on a red bottle of wine. I think
This
that,
picture I think does appear on a red bottle. No, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I don't remember.
but I think that white wine needs some color to it. I feel like it dulls the color of the wine in a bottle for some or something. So it does something from my.
Yeah,
I would
some
love to
when I
speak to
brought
an
it out,
artist about why that would be. We should get an artist on about labels.
I
But
brought
I,
it out after the Syrah, and the person says to me, "This can't be better than the Syrah." And I said, "I don't know if it's better, but it's definitely of the same." Like I put it like it's California and that's France, but it's very good. They're like it doesn't look like it's a high end bottle.
well, can you put it next to the sea lake? Because actually, that was kind of a black and white label too, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
And I didn't like that label either, but it's a nicer. Oh, there's gold in it. Okay, that's the
yeah,
difference.
it's a very big difference.
Yeah. I just feel like, I don't know, somehow it dulls the bottle to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's a very big difference.
That's just something I noticed. I'm sure John's not listening to this. He's a busy man, but I'm gonna let him know my thoughts. And then when he never speaks to me again, I'll have you order my wine. Like the episode in Seinfeld where Jerry had to get Kramer's fruit because he got banned from the store.
Anyway, that wine, something I haven't tasted or haven't smelled in a white wine in a long time. There was a little
Yeah,
like it was
yeah.
like a little honeysuckle with jasmine.
That's
I'm
awesome.
sorry, I'm going into some specific tasting notes, but it was so crisp and so like, citrusy and easy to drink and yum.
And Pinot Blanc is the genetic mutation of Pinot Noir. So there you go. That's your second genetic mutation wine.
Well, maybe I like genetic mutations of red wines. Maybe that
Right.
I like red wines, and I say that, but that's what I was saying is that these are red wine lovers whites.
Right. I'm wondering if that's what I wrote about. Anyway, yeah, that's those are both absolutely great wines. So you have good taste in white wine too.
So that's my I have another one also that's just open here. I don't know if it's just sitting. It's the Recanati Reserve Marselan 2019.
Oh yeah.
The red
How,
wine that I've opened up recently.
how was that?
It's great. It's a blend of Cabernet and Grenache. No, sorry, I'm wrong. Yeah. It's a cross. Sorry, it's this Marselan, which is like this
Yeah.
cross
I
between
was going to say
Cabernet
it
and
must
Grenache.
have that in there.
Yeah, that's it. I was looking at it before and I was like, no, this is a Marselan. This is not a Cabernet Grenache. But it's and those are I like Grenache, and so it definitely reminds me of that. And it's good. It was very fruity, as you would expect from a from a from like an Israeli red.
Right, right. I always liked that line, the reserve line of Recanati, but trying to remember. I think my favorite over the years has been, and I think I mentioned this on the Pesach picks, has always been the Wild Carignan.
Yeah, I love the
Um,
wild Carignan.
yeah.
But what's interesting about this one, and I just was checking because I tasted it. It wasn't very alcoholic. It's only 13%.
Oh, nice.
So
Another great winery.
yeah,
Um, I finally figured out what the genetic mutation of a different red grape was that I recently wrote about because I was writing about the Parage Petita Blanc, that new white wine from Parage Petita that came out 2024. And the Grenache Blanc is a mutation of Grenache, the red Tinto Grenache. And
or
that's why
in Spanish they call it the Ganaxa.
I was thinking about it recently. So those are three genetic mutations of red grapes that we discussed.
And I love that Parage.
I'm
That,
putting that in the show notes. Genetic mutations of remind me if I don't put it in there.
that 24 is really good. I think it's the best Parage.
Which 24?
The Parage Petite
Oh,
White.
that white. I love
Yeah,
it. I
it's
thought it
really
was really
great.
yeah.
I had it off the line.
But I got to get back to my semi-paying job.
This has been wonderful. Thank you.
It was great to see you, and let's do it again soon. Maybe you can do it from maybe you will end up on that French trip. Who knows?
You never
And
know.
you do it live there. I have faith in you and your schedule. All right. Well, great to see you. And as always, we love to hear from everyone. I have heard from a bunch of people, by the way. That last episode, our End Friends first episode, I heard from so many people who loved it and loved the style. And honestly, I think there are other people who do podcasts and a lot of our friends, nowadays. But I kind of like our style of a show about nothing.
It
Or
is a
some
show about
nothing
nothing.
style. And I love that idea of just like people wandering in and we're just sitting there schmoozing. And it's great. So, all right. Till next time.
I hope to see you in more undisclosed locations.
That's right. Undisclosed locations are the best. All right. Take care.
You too.